Start with religion and politics, and with me now is Pastor Robert Jeffress of the First Baptist Church in Dallas, Texas, who said Mitt Romney's not a Christian, called Mormonism a cult. Let me get to those questions right off the bat, and let me convince you. First of all, I'm so glad to hear you're a fan of Hardball, and I appreciate that, sir. Tonight, I want you to just elaborate on those words. Let's take a look at what you said Friday at the Values Voters Summit, and then you can elaborate on. Here's part of your introduction for Rick Perry. Let's watch.
Do we want a candidate who is a good, moral person, or do we want a candidate who is a born-again follower of the Lord Jesus Christ? Rick Perry is a proven leader. He is a true conservative, and he is a genuine follower of Jesus Christ.
Afterwards, you were asked to compare Romney's faith to that of Rick Perry. Let's watch what you said.
Rick Perry's a Christian. He's an evangelical Christian, a follower of Jesus Christ. Mitt Romney's a good, moral person, but he's not a Christian. Mormonism is not Christianity. It has always been considered a cult by the mainstream of Christianity. So it's the difference between a Christian and a non-Christian.
Pastor, thank you so much for coming on. And I guess my only role here, since I'm a secular person involved with political discussions, to find out what you meant by that in a secular context. In other words, we're in the middle of a campaign. What relevance is it? Yes. The word cult. Would you use it again if you were asked the same question?
Yes, but I would clarify, like I did in that clip later on, Chris. I was talking not about a sociological cult like David Koresh or Jim Jones. I'm talking about a theological cult. I mean, it's a fact. Mormonism came 1,800 years after Jesus Christ and the founding of the church. Mormonism has its own human leader, Joseph Smith. It has its own set of doctrines. It has its own religious book, the Book of Mormon, in addition to the Bible. And so by that definition, it is a theological cult. I believe Mormons are good people. I alluded to that into the introduction, but I don't believe that they are Christians. And by the way, Chris, my view is not unique. USA Today cited a poll that said 75% of Protestant pastors do not believe Mormons are Christians. That's 3 out of 4 Protestant pastors. And, you know, there are people out there who want to try to paint me as the Jeremiah Wright of the right. My comments are not fanatical. It's just true that Mormonism is not a part of historical Christianity.
Well, Webster's, this is a secular show. Here's what Webster's describes in a religious context what a cult is. A system of religious worship or ritual, a quasi-religious group, often living in a colony with a charismatic leader who indoctrinates members with unorthodox or extremist views, practices, or beliefs. Is that what you mean by cult?
Well, I believe more in a theological cult.
This is the Webster's definition.
Yeah.
This is what Webster says.
Well,
so you disagree with this definition?
I think it can be expanded, but, you know, you look at Brigham Young and you look at Joseph Smith, and perhaps some parts of those definitions apply to that as well. But what I'm saying is that to those of us who are evangelical Christians, and remember, Chris, that is to whom I'm speaking, there are a lot of reasons I said to prefer Rick Perry to Mitt Romney. I believe that Mitt Romney is a conservative out of convenience, while Rick Perry is a conservative out of conviction. But to those of us who are evangelicals, when all other things are equal, we prefer competent Christians to competent non-Christians who may be good moral people like Mitt Romney.
But are you concerned at having what you consider a member of a cult in the White House? Would you want a cultist in the White House? I'm serious. It's your word, not mine.
Yeah, I understand. I understand that, and that's why I've been very clear to say that if it comes down to a choice between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama, I'll probably hold my nose in the general election and vote for Mitt Romney, because I believe there are other criteria besides the person's faith. You know, I believe Barack Obama is a Christian.
But if you don't believe Mitt Romney's a Christian, are you concerned about a particular thing he might do as president as a member of a cult? Do you believe he might do something as president? No, seriously. He's a member of a cult, you say.
Yeah.
You support other people for president. Fine. But I want to get back to this. Is your problem with Mitt Romney that he's a member of a cult, or he may not be a good member of the cult? Because you hit it both ways. In your conversations, you've suggested
that's right.
he's not a good Mormon. Would you prefer a good Mormon to someone who you think is not a good member of the cult?
Well, somebody stopped me in the hallway after the voters' summit and said to me, you know, Pastor, my problem with Mitt Romney is not that he's a Mormon, but he's not a good enough Mormon when it comes to the issue of abortion and gay rights and so forth. Look, I think if it comes down to it, and this is why I brought up Barack Obama, I would rather have somebody in the White House who is not a Christian, like Mitt Romney, who at least embraces some biblical values, versus a professing Christian like President Obama, who supports unbiblical principles like abortion.
That's a political view. But just to straighten this out, because you've made a lot of news on this, and I appreciate you coming on this program. We don't mind making news here either. You say that he's a member of a cult. You stick to that, right?
Yes. Okay. Yes, a theological cult, and I want to clarify that. Are
you concerned that any one of his theological cult beliefs is sitting in the White House, per se? Forget it's Mitt Romney. Are you concerned about the very fact, come January 2nd, 2013, that a member of a cult is in the White House? Does that in itself concern you?
No, I do not have that concern, because I think there are a lot of other things to be concerned about Mitt Romney. And as we both just alluded to, I'm not sure he's that much of a practicing Mormon. I don't know. But if he were a really devout Mormon, I'm not sure how he could have held the views he did about abortion for so long.
What is wrong with Mormonism?
Well, Mormonism, first of all, has another revelation. The revelation of the Book of Mormon came 1,800 years after Christianity. It uses a lot of the same language, Chris, as Christianity does. It talks about Jesus Christ. It talks about faith. But it's the Jesus Christ who came to North America, you know, in the 1800s, not the Jesus Christ of the Bible. It doesn't have the traditional belief about heaven and hell. It teaches a works-oriented type of salvation. And so for those of us who are evangelicals, there is a difference. And as I cited in that poll, 75% of Protestant pastors believe that there is a vast difference between Mormonism and biblical Christianity.
Last point on religion, it's not my strength, but let me ask you this. Do you believe, as a Christian, and you're a Christian, do you believe that Mormon people believe that Jesus Christ was God?
Well, you know what I've learned, Chris, when talking to people about religion.
Well, do you believe that they they are Christians, in other words, to that central point?
Well, I don't believe all Baptists are Christians. I'm a Baptist. I don't believe all Baptists are Christians, all Catholics are Christians, or all Mormons are Christians. Nobody goes to heaven in a group, Chris. We go individually to heaven or hell, personally based on what we believe in Jesus Christ.
You're very good at this, but this is called
Mormon
spin.
believes.
I just want to ask you, sticking to the issue of faith and belief. Okay, let me ask you about
not
this
all Mormons believe what Mormons believe.
You know,
that's what I'm saying.
You've stirred up a bee's nest.
Faith.
Does it bother you that you've stirred up a bee's nest on this? That people hear the word cult, they hear Charles Manson, they hear Jonestown.
Right.
They hear cult in the sense that I've described it in the Dictionary of the United States, of Webster's Dictionary, as some group living in a colony with a charismatic leader that indoctrinates members with unorthodox or extremist views. You say that's not the definition you use. But to Americans who hear you, when they hear cult, I'm going to give you now a chance. Say you didn't mean that kind of cult. Say, I didn't mean that kind of cult.
Okay, I will say that, Chris. I will raise my right hand and say I did not mean that kind of cult. I was talking about a theological cult. But let me add, if I could, that I think many of the people who are bothered what I said about a cult are just as bothered when I sit here and say that Mormonism is not Christianity. And so, you know, a lot of the reporters, they rushed me after my introduction because they picked up on the fact that I was distinguishing a good moral person like Mitt Romney with a born-again follower of Jesus Christ. They knew what I was saying. They knew I was saying that Mormonism is not Christianity, and I think that's what the real issue is, not the cult issue.
In general parlance, would you always support what you consider a born-again Christian for the presidency against any other opponent? In other words, that's your position.
I wouldn't say that.
Well, you said that's why you're for Romney. That's why you're for Perry, you said. That's what you said.
No, Chris. I gave a number of reasons that I'm for Perry. It's not just because of his faith. I believe that he's a consistent conservative. I believe he's skilled in leadership, perhaps not rhetoric, but in leadership. And I think there are a number of reasons beyond his Christian faith. And again, I think you've got a Christian in Barack Obama, a professing Christian, and a non-Christian in Mitt Romney. And I've said publicly I would vote for Mitt Romney if it comes down to that. But remember, Chris, we're in a primary season, and those of us who are evangelical Christians, we have a chance to select a Christian for our leader. And I want to remind people, Chris, it was John Jay, the first Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, who said we have as our duty and privilege to select and prefer Christians as our leaders. Having preference for Christians over non-Christians is not being bigoted. It's a preference that we're allowed.
So let me read to you the United States Constitution, what it says about religion and political office. Article 6, United States Constitution, which many people believe to be divinely inspired, by the way. The senators, Mormons do, the senators and representatives before mentioned and the members of the several state legislatures and all executive and judicial officers, both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. But no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification for any office or public trust under the United States. Sir, how else can I know you're a fundamentalist, so let's go to the strict meaning of this term.
Yes.
No religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust. How can anyone of any religion read that anything as meaning anything else but what it says?
Chris,
no religious
certainly
test.
You understand. Chris, certainly you understand the difference between government imposing a religious test and private citizens having any kind of litmus test they want to. Are you suggesting that for me to prefer a Christian over a non-Christian is against the law or unconstitutional?
No,
that's absurd. Article 6 is talking about the government cannot impose a religious test.
And my question
you can impose any kind of test you want to.
Of course, anybody can have any preference or prejudice. Of course we can. A lot
That's
of
right,
people
but you're misleading people in thinking it's unconstitutional.
No, I'm just asking you if you think there's a
are.
higher value in what you're saying than the Constitution says. People can say, I'm Italian American, so always vote for the Italian American. I'm Black American, always vote for the Black American, African American candidate. Everybody can do that, but that's not a high value. People can always say, I'm always going to support somebody in my religion. You can't say that what you're proposing, which is simply to vote your religion, is somehow a higher value than any other prejudice, can you? It's just a prejudice.
I can say that do you think John Jay, the author of the Federalist Papers and the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, was a bigot? Do you think that, Chris?
No,
when he said
I just say that
you
saying what you're saying is no different than some Rastafarian saying, I'm only going to vote for Rastafarians for president. It's just another religious sect or cult or denomination that simply votes their denomination or cult or sect. It's just the same old kind of tribalism that we had in Europe and we tried to leave behind. Yes or no?
Well, first of all, Chris, your viewers have just heard me say that I would vote for Mitt Romney in certain circumstances. So obviously I have other considerations. But to your question, is there a higher authority than the Constitution? For me, as a Christian, as a pastor, the answer is yes, it is the Bible.
Okay. You know, it's great to have you on, sir. And I think you're great.
Thanks,
the way
Chris.
you talk on this show. I don't agree with you, but I think it's great that you come on and honestly reveal. You're not a tricky guy. Not too tricky. Thank you very much, Pastor Robert Jeffress, for coming on.